So today we're really honored to have Eva Murray talk to us at our January 2025 event. If you're not able to see this, we'll also post it to YouTube, so you can see it at a later time. Thank you to all our Boston User Group leaders. Without their help, this wouldn't be possible. John and Jackie, Brian, and Preeti. Thank you, and I see 3 of you were able to join us today, so thank you. Upcoming events, Tableau conference coming up, early bird special if you want to save a few bucks, April 15th to 17th. Our next Boston and Alteryx user group will be combined. It will be March 19th at Bentley University. We'll be sending out, we'll post about the event and check out the Bevy page for upcoming details. And our guest speaker today will be Eva Murray. She's a data and tech career coach, 4-time Tableau Visionary. She will talk about what else can you do with your skills, the jobs and careers you never thought of. And for those who joined us, there's a bonus. If you put into the chat your question and email, for those in the US, we'll do a selection of those people who ask questions, and we will give out virtual swag. So if you like virtual swag, please put in questions. And Eva says, don't be afraid to come off mute and ask questions during the event. She's happy to answer them. You don't have to wait till the end, but we will have time then also for questions if you want to wait. And with that, I'll hand it over to Eva.
Thank you, Amy. And first up, thanks for the invite. Like Amy said, please ask questions at any point. You can't really phase me much, and I suggested that Amy will keep an eye on the chat and jump in whenever possible. Or if you raise your hand, I will probably be able to notice that. As a long-time Tableau community and events veteran, I will say you get the most out of it if you get your questions answered. I mean, that's what you're all here for. So let me share my screen so we can get right into it. Okay, that should be working, I think. Just a quick thumbs up, then you can see it. Okay, if I could just have a thumbs up from you, Amy, if you can see the screen, that would be great. Okay, cool. Excellent. All right. So what we're going to talk about today is what else you can do with your skills. Now, maybe a bit of an odd title, but this is actually a question that has come up a lot from people that I've worked with, but also in conversations about people's career path. A lot of you, and I will put out a poll in just a couple of minutes, are probably in jobs that have a reasonably clear progression, but maybe only to a certain limit. And with you being here, I'm not assuming you want to change jobs, but you're maybe curious at, what else can I do with my skills? I mean, that's probably why you're here. And that is the answer I want to give you today. Quick bit about me, if you don't know me. My name is Eva Murray. As Amy has mentioned, I have worked in companies in data and tech for over 13 years. I've put a few stations of my life in there. I did grow up in Germany. I then decided after high school, I want to see a little bit of the world. So I went to New Zealand to do 3 months of work and travel. I stayed for over 8 years, and that's where I went to university as well. I went to start my career at Deloitte. Intention was to do HR consulting. They put me into IT and tech consulting, and I'm like freaking out. I had not studied this. I did psychology and HR at uni. That's what I was aiming for. But I decided to trust them, and it brought me here today, and I'm very pleased it did. From there, I went into finance and banking in Australia, then back into consulting in Australia before moving back home to Germany to move into a software company, and then most recently worked in the UK at Snowflake. And what that has given me is a perspective on data and tech problems, companies and careers across consulting, as well as customer organizations like finance, but also being on the vendor side and seeing things from that perspective, which has been super fascinating. And that's what I'm going to have quite a heavy focus on today. I've also been, I will say I was heavily involved in the Tableau community. I cannot claim to currently be this super involved person, mainly because right now I'm helping people who are super involved. What I discovered, and maybe this is helpful for you to hear, is when I started using Tableau as a customer. This was when Tableau in Australia had 5 employees. So they were quite early on. I was a customer working for a very large bank. I was very fortunate to, because of that, meet executives from Tableau and make really good connections. And I loved the tool. And I co-hosted Makeover Monday with Andy for a number of years. I wrote a book with Andy, then I wrote a book by myself about community building. Like, I did a lot with, in and around Tableau, and I genuinely loved it. And at some point I realized I'm never going to be the best analyst. I'm never going to be the best visualization person. Other people are much better at this. They're much hungrier to really dive in and do complex calculations, these, really advanced data models and all of that stuff that just didn't come naturally to me. But what I realized I was good at was helping people be the best they can be in data roles and encouraging them in their careers, figuring out ways to connect the right people and bring them together. And that's what brought me here today. And what got me to being a data and career coach, because I realized that is really what my talent is. And that realization was quite refreshing. And it also gave me permission to step away from what is quite a technically oriented, typical career path. So from there, what you can expect today is we're going to spend about half of the time on the presentation, the ideas that I've brought, and some of the things I want to take you through. But I also want time for Q&A. So it can be either split up, presentation, then Q&A. You can ask throughout, and we will take this whole combination of things right to the end. However we want to do it, I'm flexible, but please make sure you get your questions answered. Like I said, Amy's going to monitor the chat, and you can put your questions in there. If you want to come off mute and ask your question live, that's totally fine. I encourage that. Raise your hand so we know. And yeah, there will be a handout at the end / in the follow-up email, so you will also get that. But let's get on to the poll. First bit of interactivity. What is your current job title? And bonus points for including the industry. So if you can pop in the chat, what is your current job title, the formal thing on paper, and what is the industry you are working in? That will be super helpful for me to know. And hi, Michelle Freeman. Good to see you. I was hoping you would be here. Data engineer, technical implementation consultant, I see senior, business analyst, technical engineer, data analyst, engineer, business analyst. Oh, I'm so glad my predictions are coming true. Visualization developer, data viz consultant, senior manager, commercial real estate, data analyst. I'm shortening some of these just for my own kind of sanity. There's a lot coming through. This is great. Reporting analyst, data viz lead, team lead, graduates, great. Business insights, business intelligence development engineer. Good. Okay, a little bit what I thought, which is good, because otherwise this would be a bit of an awkward presentation if everyone came out with these like very random titles that I've never heard, because then this wouldn't quite work. I thought there would probably be a lot of data analysts / business analysts, some data engineers, maybe some data scientists or database type folk. And I think some of you, especially in consulting, the title might be a bit different, but the work might be fairly similar to the typical analytics and engineering overlap kind of work. And what I want to focus on today is, because in this community, a lot of you are working in those roles, is where else can you go with that? What could that look like? And some of that could be outside of your current company. Some of it could also be internally, because I'm always a big fan of expanding your current role with more responsibilities if that's what you're looking for. So while we're talking about this, like I just said, most of us either have those titles or we associate a career in data with being an analyst, an engineer, a data scientist. And they're really important roles. They are there for a reason. There are so many of those roles for a reason. They are core to a lot of companies and what they do. But there are also other opportunities. And if you feel in any way that there are maybe limited options for what you could do next, then I'm hoping to expand that horizon today a little bit. It is a very young industry still. if we compare it to things like medicine, law, finance. If you think of a lawyer or a doctor or an accountant, there are decades and even hundreds of years in some industries of pathways that have been shaped, where there are certain hierarchies and roles that are very kind of set in stone and that's expected, but people know what they're getting into, and they know exactly, okay, if I start as an associate lawyer in this firm, it takes roughly so many years and so many hours and overtime and all of these things to get to becoming a partner in the firm, if that's what I'm aiming for. It's very straightforward in theory, right? Like on paper, it's clear what you need to do. It's not so clear in our industry, right? Because there are jobs. When I was a technical evangelist or technology evangelist, 10 years earlier, when I started my career, that didn't exist, or it wasn't named that, or I didn't know about it. So there are things you can aim for, but if you don't know that they're out there, how will you even do that? So what I want to have you think about is, without any judgment, let's think of these titles, analyst, engineer, data scientist, as kind of the mainstream data roles. And again, without judgment, like that is perfectly fine. And it's perfectly fine to progress to senior and principal and manager. But we're here to see what else can you do. There are adjacent areas where your skills are required. And I'm just going to throw out things like marketing as an example. And we want to think about it as extending and like the impact you have and the longevity of your career. Because the other big consideration a lot of people come to me for, actually, they're like, I can become a manager, like that's one logical way to progress my career, but what if I don't want to be a manager? What if I really like hands-on technical work? I want to continue doing that. I don't want to be responsible for managing people. Maybe you love mentoring them and helping them and working as a team, but you don't want the HR stuff, I'll call it, right? Some people thrive and some people are amazing managers. I've had a few in my career and all the power to them. I tried being a manager and it wasn't my jam. I just wasn't great at it. The people management bit was really hard. I struggled with that. So where do we go from there? I've said this a few times now. So, I'll call it out here as well. I've also said here, not everyone should be, and I will put my hand up first. I think when I say people, not everyone should be, for some people, it's the only option to progress. And then if they realize that's not our thing, it's really hard to go back, because you would maybe take a pay cut, maybe it's a reputation impact, but also often people don't get a lot of training to actually be good people managers and to have a really positive impact. And what I've also noticed in our industry, and I hope this will change over time, is that technical people often expect their manager to be more, or at least as technical as them. So they expect to be able to go to their manager with any technical problem and get an answer. I think in the past that was true because those people were promoted into management roles. But if you want a really good manager, at some point they need to stop investing all their development time into technical skills and invest some of that, or a lot of it, ideally, into management skills, people skills. So they won't have all the answers technically, but they will be really good at helping you have an amazing career. But I think that's sometimes where the challenge is, right? You find that either your manager isn't as technical as you would like them to be, or you're becoming a manager and you're worried about not having all the answers, or that your team might not respect you. So let's dive in to some of those roles that you may not have considered. And I'm just going to pause for a very quick second just to see. Yeah, Michelle put it in the chat, definitely don't want to manage people. And I think, Michelle, and I say this to the whole group, it can actually be scary to say that out loud. I had this conversation probably 3 years ago with some colleagues where they said, oh, yeah, I feel like I can't say this because I don't want to be perceived as not ambitious. So they either said nothing and kind of just said, maybe I'm just stuck here for a little while, or maybe they changed companies because they didn't know how to progress unless they became a manager, and they didn't want that, but they also didn't want to be seen as a not ambitious person, especially, so this was women I spoke to. And I actually said to my manager at the time very clearly, I said, my ambition is not to be a manager, and this might hurt me because it might look like I'm not aiming for that next thing, but I really want to progress as an individual contributor. And thankfully he said, totally not a problem. We'll just make sure there's a path for you. But I understand that for some people that might feel like a risky move to say, I don't want to manage people. I want to progress in other ways, especially if it's not obvious if you can in your company. So let me give you a few examples. I've got some titles here, and please, well, I hope these resonate. I hope you've come across some of these already. If not, also fine. They might have other titles as well. I've tried to come up with something that's very clear. And if I think of any additional versions or variants, I will mention them. The first one is as a sales engineer or product consultant or pre-sales engineer. So if you are a Tableau customer in your organization, you have probably come across product consultant. I think that's what Tableau at least used to call them. Sales engineer is what they're called at Snowflake. Pre-sales engineer is what they're sometimes called in tech companies as well. And in this role, the key thing is you're partnering with sales to demonstrate the capabilities of a product. And I will use Tableau very heavily as an example because we all understand that. So you are partnering with the sales team. You are the technical person they take into customer calls, customer meetings, and you will help solve customer problems. And by that, I don't mean big projects, but rather solving something that convinces them to buy the thing. So if you're working for a bank, at some point, a salesperson from Tableau came to the bank together with a sales engineer or a product consultant, and they did a demo, and they maybe took some of the bank's data and created some dashboards and maybe set up a Tableau server instance or something with the bank's data or with some dummy data from the financial industry to show a really relevant example. The skills you need to be good at this job is strong communication skills, deep technical expertise. So you want to be the person who really knows Tableau inside out. You don't have to be the best at design. Typically, what I have seen is that it's very much about functional, about building things quickly rather than an iron viz level submission. That's not what people are after. It's about quick results, taking the data, showing the power of Tableau, which really is in, hey, let's turn this around quickly. It's just build something that gives us an answer and then go from there and iterate. You want to be good at problem solving and at telling a story. What I really love about this type of role, and I did apply for this at Tableau and actually at the Information Lab Germany back in the day, this was in 2016. What I love about this job is these people are usually the hero in the sales cycle. The salespeople spend a lot of time and effort and skill, of course, building relationships. They will look after the contractuals. They will get the right people in the room and all of that stuff. But when it comes to pitching the product, it's usually the sales engineer who does that really well and who will blow people away. The fun stuff about this job, well, and I call it fun stuff. For you, it might be different things that you consider fun, but let's just say what appeals to most people about this job is there can be a lot of travel involved, depending on the location and the kind of company. So at Tableau, I would imagine now people are, the different regions or territories are very well covered. So travel might be, fairly local or regional, which is also not a bad thing. Building demos, which I always enjoyed, so that can be a really fun aspect of the job. Giving presentations and having a variety of customers to work with. So there's always learning, tackling different data sets. It's a little bit like Makeover Monday, over and over again, just the stakes are a bit higher. Companies where you would have such a role is, well, it is software companies. So Tableau, Salesforce, Snowflake, Databricks, ThoughtSpot, Alteryx. These are some of the players that you've, I'm sure, heard of. Also, any of Tableau's competitors, any of the database companies, the cloud companies, they would have sales engineers. Jobs that are similar would be Tableau consultants in consulting companies. And I'm happy to be challenged on this by the consultants on this call, but typically they do a mix of that where they are part of winning new client work where they would act like a sales sales engineer and do some of those demos, maybe build a proof of concept, a POC. And they might also be part of the team that actually then implements the work. I'm going to just pause here for a moment and see if there's questions or comments on this. If someone wants to come off mute and jump in, feel free to. Maybe while I wait for somebody to jump in. The reason why I'm starting with this job is because in my experience, what I've seen and what I've experienced myself is if you have experience with Tableau and so not building the same report every week for 5 years, but truly, a breadth of experience, you have a good understanding of the product, you know how it works, you've maybe given some presentations, you're good at communicating, this could be a job for you. You would have the skill set that people have that come into these jobs. Now, in all fairness, you might compete with people who have like a computer science degree and have a very technical background. In my time at Snowflake and at Exasol, a lot of the people in these jobs actually did computer science with a focus on database technologies and all that. Like, some people are deep technical, but that is not to say you couldn't do this job, because the companies I've interacted with along the way, they have all done boot camps where you spend 3 weeks at headquarters just doing super intense training to get all the foundations, to make sure you know what the methodologies are, so that you can then be part of the team that goes out to customers and everyone tells the same story, has the same approach, and you really know all those foundations or foundational skills that they use in those conversations. Okay, if there is no questions, I will move on until somebody stops me. Okay, next one, product marketing manager. And I would love, can you do reactions here? No, I don't think you can. Maybe you can do something in the chat, like a little emoji or a yes, no. Is this something you would have expected? Have you ever considered going into marketing from data? I'm going to say yes. Okay.
Eva, interesting thing is that for my PhD, I pay for a lot of it by working in the marketing department.
Nice.
So being a TA there, and our backgrounds often blend into our new lives. So product marketing manager, like, you have to sell what you're doing all the time. So I use a lot of the skills I learned there to what I do now.
Yeah. And you know what? I will not I have zero judgment for anyone of preferences of where they want to work or not. That my job is not to tell you, oh, you shouldn't do this or you should do this. This is just to give you some suggestions. What I will ask, as somebody who has worked in marketing many years, is to not underestimate it. I was on the receiving end of, oh, you guys just do pretty slides, don't you? Marketing is a profession like any other, and marketing are heavily involved in selling the thing that pays all of our salaries, right? When we work in these corporates, especially if we work in like an analyst team or something where we're not the ones selling, well, somebody needs to sell so that we can all get paid. The reason I brought up product marketing is because when you think of companies like Tableau, the people who do product marketing, and this is, I will say, I don't know how much things have changed in the last couple of years, but when I was more heavily involved, these are the people who put on things like IronViz. They need a really strong understanding of the technology, ideally be really good at using it themselves, so that they can help bridge between sales, marketing, and the product team, so product management and product development, to create the messaging that resonates with everyone. And when if some of you have been, I know some of you have been around for many years in the Tableau community, you will remember Alyssa as the CMO and some of the things that happened, under her watch, which were like super creative. And to think just of some of the ways that the product's brought to life. And this is, applies to Tableau, it applies to Databricks, Alteryx, Snowflake, all the others. In product marketing, you will take these technical skills and experiences you have with the product, and let's use Tableau as an example, and you figure out what's the value this brings for the customer. How can we put this into words? How can we come up with creative campaigns that we put out there that make people want to engage with our website, with our events, that help our salespeople sell this, that help the product team understand what resonates, what doesn't resonate. And so it's a lot about messaging. It's about collaborating with really technical people internally, where you also then need to understand the language they're speaking. I was part of the product marketing team at Snowflake, and we would work with product management who, for example, were building features around data science. And if I don't have any idea of what they're talking about, it's going to be really hard for me to then convey that to the rest of marketing who are helping with events and webinars and those kind of things to really put that out there. Now, that might to you just all sound like, oh my God, shoot me now. Like, I don't want to do marketing. And that's fine. It is an option. And I want to, again, talk about the skills that are needed. So some of that is market research, really understanding industries, understanding customers. If you are an experienced data analyst in a specific industry, let's say healthcare, you already bring two things, like the technical and the industry expertise that could be super valuable in a tech company for them to do that marketing, that messaging to that target audience.
We have a couple of questions, Eva.
Yes,
Emma
let's
says,
look at those.
how do you recommend building skills in sales marketing if that hasn't been your background, especially switching mid-career jobs? What experience in this, or you want experience in those areas already?
Oh, I love that question, because yes, organizations want you to have experience, but nobody gives you a job without experience. And it's like, how do you even build that? Really good question. And I will say, you probably know more or have more experience in marketing than you maybe expect. And what I mean by that is, when you have a LinkedIn profile or a Tableau public profile, you are marketing yourself in some way, right? Like, you have to think about, how do I write about me in my about statement? How do I pitch me? How do I pitch myself at a networking event? When somebody says, so what do you do? Well, the response you give is something you've probably thought about. Or if you haven't, the next time you will have thought about it. I didn't have specific marketing experience when I went into it. I was when I was at Exasol, I was kind of I was this weird solo person reporting to the CEO, and then I was absorbed into marketing at a later stage. And I think it was just the natural fit of this evangelist role, where it's like, well, I'm the one who came before marketing. I was often the first interaction somebody had with the company, so it made sense to put me into marketing. I don't think when I was at Snowflake, I don't think there was really a mention of marketing experience for the evangelist role that I applied for. I will come to that a little bit, and it's also in the handout, but I think what's key here is aligning the experiences and the expertise you have to that job and saying it in their words. And what I mean by that is, I'm currently working with a client who has a background in teaching and statistics and wants to get into data. And I think teaching is a great experience to have. There's so many skills around, public speaking, or, speaking in front of people, dealing with challenging stakeholders, right? Students, parents, other teachers, regulators. Like, there's a whole lot of stakeholders that none of them are easy. How can you translate that, what you bring, to what they're looking for when it's not direct, right? When it's not, oh, I've done marketing, so I'm going to do marketing again. I don't know what your background is, but let's say you are a data analyst in a specific company. Think specifically for marketing, what's going to be important is communication. It's going to be verbal and written. I think it's also having a really good understanding just of digital things, like when you sign up. Sorry, I'm trying to say all the things at once. So I'm a business owner and I operate by myself, but I have to learn a lot about digital marketing, and working in that field before has really helped, because I have a newsletter. So if I want people to sign up, like, there needs to be some sort of workflow that I need to establish. And there are lots of good tools already out there, but everyone who now starts a business, unless they can realistically rely on word of mouth, they need to learn about marketing. And so you as a consumer of newsletters, of subscriptions, you're already in touch with a lot of marketing things. So I think you would have a good understanding. You can't fake your experience, but aligning what you've done to what they're looking for and trying to put it in their words is a good idea. And I would always recommend use a little bit of ChatGPT to give you a starting point and say, this is what I've got, this is what they're looking for. Can you give me a suggestion of how I can align my experience to their expectations and how I can frame it in a way that's relevant for this particular job? And just see what comes out and what resonates with you. And I hope that's a good starting point, but it is always a tricky one.
We had a question from Lauren. She says, can you give the more detailed example of the role of product marketing manager versus a product manager versus sales?
Yes, good point to do that now as well while we're still on the slide. So product marketing sits in the marketing organization and focuses on, I'll use Tableau as an example. Let's say Tableau Pulse, right? So the more technical messaging. So yeah, the technical messaging around Pulse. What's the benefit? What's the value? How do you put that into words that resonate with a customer, that aren't just fluffy, but that have some substance that make them think, okay, I want to find out more. And there would also be product marketing is also involved in, for example, keynotes and demos that you see at a conference. In the keynote, there will be things around the product. There will be product demos, but there will also be like a bit of a presentation element where maybe one of the executives, or in the past, Francois as the CPO, would talk about the product. So that's how product marketing is involved in putting together some of that messaging, at least like a first draft or the initial thing, to make sure it's aligned throughout the presentation, also throughout the conference. The messaging is correct in demos, in like presentations from staff, from executives in the keynote, etc. But also in the demo, they're highlighting the right things. Versus if we look at a product manager, they are the ones responsible for the team that develops the features. So there will be, for simplicity's sake, there will be a product manager who looks after Pulse, and within their team, there will be people who develop like different elements of like that feature or functionality. And that is a very technical role. And the team is developers rather than product marketing specialists. And then sales, they are in the sales organization. So one is the developer organization or product, one is marketing, one is sales. So different parts of the organization, typically very like separate hierarchies, but ideally working together nicely. And in sales, it's then about going out there, finding opportunities and generating leads. And this is all kind of technical marketing and sales language. But when you register for a user group, or when you want to download a white paper on Tableau's website, you put in your email address and suddenly you get messaging. Or maybe if you're like, it's the first time you've registered, somebody reaches out from Tableau and says, hey, have you tried Tableau? It's like, yeah, like for the last 10 years. But yeah, so sales is responsible for generating the revenue. Like this is being super simple and selling to customers, winning the new customers. And sales will rely heavily on marketing and on the product team. So sales will rely on marketing to help them with, like nice brochures and things they can give to customers, but also putting on events where they can invite the customers and say, hey, you can hear from other customers, you can hear from our executives, or helping, for example, with these user groups a little bit kind of behind the scenes. And then sales would also rely on the product team if they say, oh, we've got this customer, they're super happy, but the only way they will renew their license is if we also give them this feature. Like this is just one example, but sales should have a strong relationship with the product team to make sure their customers stay happy by having new things developed, or knowing what's on the roadmap, what's coming next in the products, and when can they expect it? Can they get a preview? Can they test it in their own environment? That kind of stuff. I hope that helps, Lauren. And let me maybe finish up the quick overview of this role. And then Amy, I think we've got another couple of comments or questions. So for this product marketing manager, I mentioned, so in terms of skills, market research, communication, understanding the product features. So, use like Tableau Pulse, could be Tableau Server. You could say it's, but it's also smaller, like, or specific things like map layers, or I don't know, the data connectors, that those could be things where you're like, I'm really strong on that. Let me create a campaign around this for this target audience. And storytelling. Elements that people find attractive about product marketing is, again, depending on the company, but it could involve quite a bit of travel, for example, to events. We did that quite a lot at Snowflake because the team was based in London, but we were serving all of Middle East, Africa, Europe, Middle East, Africa. And so going to events to help with keynotes, speaker prep, and also doing demos and presentations ourselves. Giving demos, giving presentations, it's quite creative work because there's elements of visual storytelling, product demos, written, there might be, podcasts, video recordings. I did quite a few interviews that we would do, on video or with partners and that kind of stuff. And yeah, different mediums. So written, video, audio, podcast, those kind of things. Like if you like different ways of getting stuff out there, it's really fun. Same kind of companies. So the big tech vendors are the ones that have those positions. They might have different names, but if you were to look for a product marketing role, that should be a pretty standard description of it. I mentioned already you work closely with marketing because they are the ones putting together events, digital marketing, but also sales and products. And other cool avenues, at least that I thought was really cool, was being a tech evangelist. This was a person they could stick on a stage in front of any audience that gives that first impression of Snowflake or XSL previously, who then go into this big, as they call it, funnel in marketing, where lots of people come in and they get nurtured until hopefully quite a few customers come out at the end. And I'm going to pause there because I want to quickly look at Leah and Joshua's comments. Yes. So Leah, the person who invented Ironvest, like who came up with the idea and who first got it off the ground, he was the person who hired me to Snowflake, Ross Perez. He's a really cool guy. Tableau Center of Excellence. Yes. Yes, and I have, admittedly, the roles I focus on are fairly technical. The Center of Excellence I see is moving, well, it can be still quite a technical role, but it's often more around enablement, maybe a little bit like the transition I did from I can help other analysts in their roles rather than being an analyst myself. If a business doesn't have a Center of Excellence, what's the justification to create and staff one? Really good question. I think one of the elements is size. It is what I would describe, maybe in a little bit of a cynical way, and reflecting also on my time as an evangelist. It's a bit of a luxury role. And I will say it's probably one that, if roles are being reduced, is probably earlier on the chopping block than some other ones. Because, not because there isn't value in it. I think it's hugely valuable, and enabling your people is really important. But companies don't think that way always. And they will be like, who generates revenue, or who saves us money, or who produces the product? Like, that's going to be the roles that probably stay the longest. In my experience, the enablement roles can be a little bit more at risk. That is to say, like, not everyone who gets into that role is going to be made redundant, of course. It's just something it would feel remiss to not mention it. In terms of a pathway towards that, I would say it's probably about going first and just saying, hey, I think there is a need to do this. I think there is a need to help our people build their skills. We have, maybe in your company, there's a few thousand people and there's, a few dozen analysts or maybe a few hundred, depending on what the company does. And at some point, there is enough people in data or let's say enough data analysts and data engineers and, some data scientists as well, that it's justified to say we need to build a center of excellence. We need to standardize our practices. We need to make sure there is best practices. We need to make sure we follow some good methodologies. It could be triggered by a pain point like, oh my God, we're having all these issues and inefficiencies. Our Tableau server is like just chock full of extracts. We need to make things run smoother, and these things need to be better. But it could also be that people say, hey, we want training. Like, where do we get training? So what I would suggest is there are quite a few people out there leading centers of excellence, and I would reach out to them and ask them how they did it. most people I've experienced in this industry love talking about their work because most people are really passionate about it. And people who lead a center of excellence are no different. So I would suggest reaching out to them and seeing how they went about it. And you will also find presentations at TUGs and at Tableau conferences, US, but also Europe, that are probably recorded and available somewhere, where people talk about this, how did I establish a center of excellence? And a couple of examples that come to mind is Lloyds Bank in the UK. I know they have a very solid center of excellence. I know that Jaguar Land Rover, I'm pretty sure they did something around that. Amy, I think JLL probably also have something that they may have spoken about at an event.
Yeah, we have an amazing center of excellence and a great training program, and it's just a joy to work for them.
Yeah, that's great. And what I would say is, because I always encourage people to make those brave moves, is if this is something you're interested in pursuing, I would go for it and see how far you can push it. And it will be serving you for your entire career, because you will learn about how to set up these initiatives. There's going to be processes to set up. You might need some tools or systems in place to run the thing. You're going to have to wrangle all these different people for lunch and learn sessions, maybe an internal conference. You're going to have to manage events. Like, there's a lot of skills you can learn by doing this. Ideally, it's part of your job or it's your entire job. But if it is an additional initiative, that could also be a really good way to gain those skills and have an impact in your company. Nobody can take it away from you, and it is something you can do somewhere else again. And the next company, if it doesn't work out in one place, they might actually hire you to do that thing. So you won't know until you try, and I encourage you to try. Okay, in the interest of time, I'm going to move on. I've got two more specific roles I want to talk about. This one is called a field CTO. And this is a role where you're acting as a technical thought leader, influencing customers, but also internal teams on industry best practices. So, and not just industry, but also technology best practices. I'll give you an example. At Snowflake, and I use Snowflake a lot because that's a tech company I worked for that had the scale to have some of these really cool roles. And it's also a great company to work for. The reason I left is to do my own business, not anything else. This field CTO role, for example, they have a field CTO in the EMEA region who focus on data science. So if the sales team says, hey, we've got this client or this customer or maybe potential customer, and we really want to wow them. We've had a lot of conversations. We understand their pain points. They're really close to signing, but we just need something else, like some secret sauce. The field CTO is a little bit like a SWAT team. They come in and they just do something special, but without the helmets and things. So this guy comes in, and he will have conversations at a strategic and a thought leader level about, in his case, data science. For other people, it could be data warehousing, it could be data engineering, it could be specific topics around AI. It could also be, this is related to the field CTO, but it's called an industry principal, where people bring specific industry expertise, and they are, maybe they bring 20 years in pharmaceuticals, and they talk to pharmaceuticals companies who want to implement Snowflake globally, and they're like, what about regulations and all that? And these people can speak their language, and that's the important thing. So this is a role that I would recommend comes at a more advanced stage in your career, because you just need to have quite a lot of experience, not just technical, but also with senior stakeholders and having tackled challenging, situations and projects. But I want to put it in there because I think for some people, this could be a really cool thing to aspire to in the next, 5, 6, 7, maybe 10 years. The skills you would need is visionary thinking, ideally a existing reputation where you've built a personal brand in the industry around a specific topic, technical topic or industry topic, deep domain expertise and customer empathy, handling high pressure situations and working closely with sales. Again, there could be a fair bit of travel involved. It may not be so much demos, it may be more presentations, but there could be, if it's a very technical role, there could be a certain element of demonstrating features and product demos. It'll be a variety of customers, and it'll be big strategic challenges they're facing. Again, it's with those established players. They might not always be called field CTOs, but I know they're called field CTOs at Alteryx and at Snowflake. And it's somebody who can talk to the CTO in the company when maybe for sales, that conversation isn't as straightforward. Yeah, so it's a situation where deep subject matter expertise meets technical skills and meets communication skills. And I will cover the last role, and then we can have more questions, or I can take you through the last elements before we do Q&A. Finally, solution architect, and this again, it could be solution consultant, it could be some other title, but this role is where you're designing solutions specifically for customers, where, let's say, using the Tableau as an example, where Tableau as a tool is integrated in their systems and workflows. So this is more, once the sale has happened, once the customer says, yes, we're going to do this, it's working closely with the sales teams on making sure the customer gets what they want, but also there's a future pathway for the customer to grow, to use more Tableau, to maybe implement other things alongside it. And it's focused on the technical elements. So you need technical depth, you need understanding of designing these solutions, but also engaging different customers at different levels, and maybe having some innovative ideas. It's really about problem solving as well. So a lot of you would have already done this, like figuring out how this thing works and how to make it work. But this would be more of an architectural, maybe more of a bigger picture, not so much specific dashboards, but maybe more, how does Tableau sit in this company? How does it work across departments? How do we integrate some of these workflows? The thing that interests a lot of people in this role is the variety of customers they get to work with, and building, compared to the sales engineer who works on winning new customers, this role is more longer term relationships, probably also longer term timeframes and deadlines and projects. They can be big, complex technical challenges, and there's a lot of relationship building involved, because you could be that go-to person that they rely on, that they always want to bring in, because you have their trust and you can solve their problems. Similar jobs are in professional services or customer success management, where it is about making sure the customer is happy with the product and is successful in using it right now, but also growing their use in the future, because at the end of the day, the company wants to sell and wants to make money and then pay you a bigger salary. So there is also the element of, how can we encourage the customer to do more with the product we have? For example, many customers of Tableau will probably have other tools as well. They might have a little bit of Power BI here, a little bit of ThoughtSpot there. How can maybe Tableau be the one taking over, and how can every department be brought into Tableau? What needs to happen for that? Okay, I'm going to take a quick sip of water and see if there's any questions, if there's anything from Amy coming in. I don't see anything new in the chat, which is fine. Okay, I will move on. I've got a couple more slides to move through, and then something I'm going to get you to take away and kind of think about in your own time. So the first one, we spoke about this earlier on, it's aligning your skills to a new role. So if you find any of these interesting, or they have given you ideas for something else you would want to look into, how can you then align what you've done so far to those new roles? So what I would suggest is to go through a few steps, and I have put those in the handout as well. First, make a list of the technical skills you have, like just be very specific and put a short description for each of them. Because what is, people say, oh, I've got 5 years of experience with Tableau. It's like, what does that mean? Like, that could mean so many things, right? Some people touch Tableau every day for hours. Some people might only need to open it once a week to update something. Doing that for 5 years is very different, right, between those two approaches. And then there's many other ways of using Tableau. So make a bit of a description of how you use Tableau and what your skills are. You can give yourself a rating. It's very hard to judge it objectively because there isn't necessarily a scale, but you can justify that with your description, what that means. And then identify what some of those transferable skills are. if you have experience building things in Tableau and you've done that for years, chances are that even if you pick up a tool you've never used that is used to build dashboards, you are not starting from scratch. You are starting from like quite far ahead, and ramping up your skills in the new tool will be much quicker compared to somebody who's opening it for the first time ever in their life and has never done any database. So what are those transferable skills? It's knowing how to approach calculation syntax. Sure, it's going to be different in a different tool, but you will probably figure it out quite quickly, especially with all the resources online. So what are some technical transferable skills, but also in terms of communication and business knowledge that you have that would be transferable to another setting? If you have worked in healthcare, working for a pharmaceutical company, there's going to be quite a bit of overlap in the terminology and some of the outcomes to be achieved and all of that stuff. If you have worked in automotive, maybe there's overlap with aeronautical engineering. Like, there are related industries or industries where, people have similar skills that they bring. So just list that out. Then get a few example job descriptions. So for example, you could say, what does a sales engineer do at Snowflake? What does a sales engineer do at Tableau and at Alteryx? Like, these are three companies that are all partnering with each other along the data value chain or the data life cycle. What do those job descriptions look like? And then you can use, for example, ChatGPT or something else like it and help you to say, okay, what do those job descriptions ask for? What do I bring? Where's the overlap? Where's the gaps? And also compare how those different companies, like, what are their requirements? How are they the same, or where are they different? And
we have a question. Shivani says, what resources would you recommend to bridge the gap between data visualization expertise and architecture level skills?
Yeah, good question. I'm actually about to get to this point. So once you have identified that there is a gap and what that gap is, it's seeing, okay, so for example, let's say the job requires, you have SQL skills and you have Tableau skills, but the job also requires Python. Then okay, Python might be something I need to learn here. I would look at what are some online courses and, be critical in your analysis. There's a lot of stuff out there. Ask around what other people have done. You can always on LinkedIn do a post that has a poll and say, I'm trying to learn Python. Here are my three options. Which one have you tried and would you recommend? Or, looking at some reviews and things. So there's online courses. There's always going to be free stuff. There's always going to be paid for things. And there's some like hybrid approach as well. But if you know somebody who can recommend things, ask them for their recommendation, but also why they recommend it and what they got out of it to make sure it's really what you're looking for. You could also say, if some of your gaps or the skills you want to develop relate to experience, how can you get that in your job? Can you expand the responsibilities? Can you talk to your manager and get more responsibility in your existing job? And then you can always get more into the Tableau community, right? And do more things in the community to improve your portfolio, for example. You're not always going to have the chance to publish stuff you did at work. Most people can't. But there's nothing stopping you from finding a lot of free data sets, creating visualizations, writing about the process, creating how-to videos. Like, there's a lot of content you can create about your learning experience that shows what you're capable of, but also shows your process and your thinking. It shows your written skills. It maybe shows you on video and how you present. Like, there's a lot of different things you can make happen for yourself when you're not given the chance at work right now. So that's how I would tackle it. Asking for recommendations, but also doing some online research on courses. I'm a fan of kind of shorter, punchier courses, so you're not locked in for months and months on end, especially in case it's expensive and not very good. Doing something short, applying the skills, creating a project so that you can show proof of what you've learned, and then going from there. So you want to take action. I always want to give practical advice. So I want you to think about something you learned today and how you can act on it. And I have created a PDF, which I don't know if Amy can share it in the chat, but she will share it definitely in the follow-up email. She already has it. It's a PDF document, and I called it the Career Path Exploration Tool, where it's the key points from today's presentation. So basically, you will get some questions that help you reflect on your skills and interests where you are today. It's got an example in there to help you think about it. Then the next part is how to map your skills to a potential role that you've identified. Then some tips around researching and networking, with a couple of examples in there as well, because networking can also be great to start talking to people, like I said, for the COE, talking to people who are already doing it and saying, what is it like? What do you like about it? How did you get started? And then finally, experimenting and taking action and some ideas on how you can take it further and how you can think kind of more long term. And we have 2 minutes left for questions. I'm going to just quickly flash this up, and please feel free to connect. So do we have any more questions from people? And feel free to come off mute, because it's going to be quicker than typing it. Can you talk about your experience inside and outside of work to target a new position? Yes. So I think the way you mean this question is using your work experience, but also maybe experience volunteering or, I don't know, kids' school or hobbies or something. Definitely. I would say that my experience of living in different countries, which was not strictly work related, has shaped me hugely as a person, and that's definitely been something I've talked about. So yeah, life experiences in general, I would definitely bring into the conversation and into the experience and the skills it's given you. I know I am somebody who can adapt to a new environment fairly quickly. It's not always comfortable, but I know I can do that, and that's going to be beneficial for a job. What are the most effective strategies for transitioning to a new industry while showcasing relevant skills, value, and alignment with its difficult. Sorry, my brain is working with its goal, but I'm simply expressing passion. Okay, very good question. I think if you want to get into a new industry, and let me just use an example, right? If I think, like as an example, if I work in finance and I want to get into retail, so I want to work for some like big supermarket chains. Are they going to believe it if I say I'm really passionate about supermarkets? They're probably going to say, Eva, you're full of BS. Like, passionate about supermarkets? But if I relate my interest to the challenges they have, and you can research them online, you can even watch customer presentations from Tableau conferences from the past. But if I can tell them, well, I find it really fascinating to use data to improve some of the customer experience on the supermarket side when they do an online order, and I've got some ideas on how we can tackle some of this stuff or some of that stuff, that's much more believable. So I think approach it from why do you want to move to this other industry, and I'm totally in support of moving it, like I'm not questioning it, but what is it that makes you interested? I think passion sometimes is overused, and a lot of people say they're passionate about certain things, but when we think, is it truly passion or is it purely an interest? And it could even be, you guys pay really well, which is also fine, not really what you want to bring as an argument, but I think there needs to be something a bit more genuine, but it can be very technical, right? There are people, if I think about medicine as a field, there are some doctors who work on body parts that are not very attractive or appealing for me, like as a layperson, but they find something very fascinating. Maybe they're a foot doctor, right? Like an orthopedic surgeon, but they find it so fascinating because there are so many bones in the foot and there's like such cool things they can do in terms of surgery. Okay, I think that's a really valid point. So find the genuine like challenge in there that makes you want to move, and I think that is a better way to open the conversation. So many questions. Okay, Shivani, how has your involvement in Tableau user groups helped you grow professionally? Yes, speaking. So I had jobs where I was on stage a lot and I was doing webinars and things. So I've been fortunate to do that a lot. If you want to do more public speaking, put your hand up to present at a user group, because it's a very friendly, safe environment. People are mostly your peers, and you can talk about some really cool things you did in Tableau, and people will really enjoy hearing that. So I think that's really helped. Leading Makeover Monday as a community project was a really, really cool experience. It opened many, many doors in my career. It helped me, give me an idea for a book. Like there's so much that came out of Makeover Monday. It's probably been the most impactful thing. So if there's anything like that you're interested in, give it a go, because the chances are that if it doesn't work out, the only thing you've lost is a bit of time and energy, but not really it's not a big financial gamble or something. And the community can be a good way to put your feelers out to people, to try things before they become like a big part of your job. And also all of those experiences to learn, you take back into your work. So plus, it's much harder to talk at a conference, just in terms of getting a spot on the agenda, than getting into a user group. So this is a great way to make it happen for yourself. Okay. Any other question? Have I missed something? Okay, I think there was one. Aaron, with the way SQL, Python, Tableau are regarded nowadays, are there any newer technologies that people should focus on, take training courses for? Good question. And I think there's always that kind of urge that we say, oh, I must be ahead of the next thing. I would say, so Tableau has been around for a good 20 years now. It's definitely the incumbent in many companies, and it's maybe being challenged by new tools. At the same time, if you think about IBM, Oracle, SAP, like kind of the dinosaurs of the industry, they are still used in so many places. Excel, it's been around for like donkey years, and it's still used in almost every organization. So I don't think it's risky to focus on Tableau still. I would say diversify, just have other things. And they don't always have to be technologies. They could be like an industry specialization, or it could be like project management or something else. I would not put all my eggs in the Tableau basket. But looking into the tech stack that you use at work, so you use Tableau, what is the data, like where is the data underneath? You could learn about AWS, you could learn about Microsoft, Google Cloud, like all those different options. Complementary technologies, I think, is a really good starting point, because then you come with a package of things, because quite often companies will use Tableau on top of AWS or Tableau on top of Google Cloud or something, right? So coming with that package of technologies can be a really smart move, and I hope that's helpful. Where may you find the PDF mentioned? Yes, you will get that by email in the follow-up from Amy. Okay, yes, Maven Analytics. I have heard a lot of good things about Maven Analytics and people doing those courses. Okay, I think I've covered the questions. Amy, have I missed any?
I think you're good, Eva. And I'd just like to give a plug out for Eva's book, Eva Nee's book, Makeover Monday. It was how I transitioned to Tableau. I worked for school districts, and I started doing Makeover Mondays every week. So I had to do it, and I still remember having being chosen as a weekly favorite. It was kind of one of my highlights, and I was at an airport, and I thought, this is amazing. This is an amazing product and community, and now I'm a Tableau ambassador. So, just reach out and do what you love, and you never know where it's going to take you, because now I do Tableau every day.
Yay, thank you, Amy. Okay, I don't think I have any words left. I feel like I've done this like deluge of information on everyone. If you have questions about what I talked about today that you think of, later on today or over the weekend or whatever, please, I had my contacts up, like connect on LinkedIn, send me the question. I will do my very best to respond. And I hope this was not my last presentation to the Boston Tug. But now it's time for all of you to get in touch with this team that you see. So Amy, Preeti, Jackie, and Brian. And I think John as well is maybe, I don't know if he's still here, but to put your name forward with a topic, like be specific about what you want to talk about, bring something to them and see if you can present in the future.
Thank you so much, Eva. I mean, your presentation day has been amazing. And as we said before, this will be available on YouTube after the talk. And so if you know anybody that would be interested, we'll send you the link afterwards and the PDF to Eva's PDF.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone. I have to quickly go into bedtime with our toddler. Lovely to see you all and everyone, on the chat. Thanks for your questions. Thanks for being so engaged. And yeah, hopefully see you all soon. And please make sure, if you can, go to the Tableau conference. It's going to be fun. I won't be there, but it will be fun.
Preeti has something to say. You're on mute, Preeti.
Sorry, I was just going to ask my team to come off of the video if they can. I'm going to quickly take a picture for the tug page. I'm going to take a screenshot. Brian, Jackie, are you coming off? Yes. Okay. Thank you, Jackie. I think we're, oh, here comes Brian too. So what I'm going to say is you all look straightforward and give me a big smile. I'll be looking crooked because I have 2 monitors. That is how it's going to go. Thank you all. 1, 2, 3. Here we go. Okay. Thank you.
Yay.
And now we can sign off.
See you,
Okay.
everybody.
Thank you, Eva.